take them down and take them down and take them down, take them down, take them down and take them down and take them down. As you look, the whole room explodes down and as you look, the whole room explodes down and
my name is Daniel Hengeveld. I work for a company called GitHub that I think most of you are probably familiar with. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm really glad to be here in Tel Aviv talking to you about something that I think is fairly important. This isn't the most technical talk. Hopefully it'll be a nice break from the highly technical talks you'll have through the rest of the day. But the title of my talk is Developing in Public. What you can't read under here in this low contrast screen is logs, history, chat, and collaboration. All right. So it's better to work together than to work alone. This is something that is the core of what we do at GitHub, from the guts of our infrastructure to the front page of our website, and it is obviously a big part of the product that we have that all of you, or some of you, probably use every day. And you'll even see that. So it's better to work together than to work alone. And you see that on the front page of our website. Build software better together. Now, build software better is what most of the other people that are speaking at this conference will be talking to you about. The last speaker, had opinions about, a better way to do client-side work with, the Google APIs. And what I want to talk about is the together part of this sentence, not the build software better. But you'll see in the end how it's all connected. It's very likely that at some point, as you work on software, you'll work with other human beings, right? Whether it's something you do at your job for a client to make money, an open source project, something with one of your kids, you are not going to disappear off to your writer's shed in your backyard or, a closed room by yourself and crank out a perfect artifact of software without dealing with other people. You probably already have been working with other people for a while, and you probably have good habits for making sure that the code that you write and the work that you do on code doesn't get in the way of other people that you're working with, getting things done. So, let's see. Looks like I just keyboard. So what if together is miles and hours apart? So the easiest way to build software with other people is to sit in the same room as them, to turn around or turn to your side and say, "Hey, why did you do this? What are you working on? Like, how are we going to organize this stuff?" But it doesn't always, writing software better together doesn't always mean together in the same room. And even if it does usually mean working together in the same room, there are sick days, there are vacations, there's working from home. And for that matter, even if you're in the same room as someone, it's not productive to tap them on the shoulder and constantly interrupt them, right? So again, we have this stuff sort of figured out in the world of code. Like we can answer a few questions, like what did I do yesterday? What did my coworker do yesterday? And you can just go look at your Git history. And there's not a lot of debate about this. I mean, everybody uses some kind of modern version control system to keep track of your code. Git, Mercurial, some people still use Subversion, Perforce, doesn't matter. This is like the best way to do things. We, as an industry, have a mature set of attitudes and practices around how to handle code. But, here's an example of one of the best practices that you can't see, a good commit message, right? Like the style of writing Git commit messages is an established thing, and it has been for a while. But software development does not equal software, right? Software is the artifact that software development produces, but the actual code is only half of the equation. So here's a breakdown of a typical Daniel day of work. Never making low contrast anything again. So 20% of my time I spend reviewing code, reading other people's code, going through patches, pull requests, things like that. 20% of my time I have here as communication. Things like advocating to other people that they should work on things that I care about, discussing why decisions were made and how decisions were made, things like that, responding to chat messages. And 20% infrastructure, making sure my development environment works the same way as Mike's development environment, or helping ops people diagnose problems with the software that I worked on in production, things like that. And then 40% of my day, I'm actually sitting in front of Emacs, writing Ruby and JavaScript code. And I don't think you'd say that I only spent 40% of my time working, because I only spent 40% of my time writing code. Like, I think we can all agree, like, this is the work. It's not just the code. So we move on. So anyway, if we take it as a given, what I said earlier, that as an industry, we've figured out like the right way to handle code and collaborating on code and making sure that there's a public record and it's easy to interact with your coworkers, we still haven't even solved half of the problem of how to collaborate in a very publicly visible way, right? So what are these like best practices around the non-software aspects of software development, right? I mean, everybody has their own pet strategies, they're like religions to some people. Agile development, writing 800-page specs, Kanban. Oh, more mic? All right, cool. Agile development, Kanban. Like, some people have endless planning meetings every week. The list goes on, right? All those are built around, in my opinion, like abstract discussion and generating stuff that people look at and agree on the day and never look at again. I mean, I could be wrong, but I imagine you haven't, if you use, for example, Pivotal Tracker, you haven't gone back and looked, how did I organize my tasks last Thursday? Or what did my Kanban board look like a month ago? Or even if you're in the kind of software developer that writes extensive specs, I imagine you probably don't really revisit those specs in the same detail at which you wrote them. I mean, this sort of thing is useful. Don't get me wrong. Planning your time, organizing how you work, and specifying things is useful, but it's not the work, right? It's meta work. So that is kind of a red herring if you think that handles the sort of best practices around all the non-code aspects of software development. So anyway, how can we keep track of the stuff that in a way that makes it useful to I keep looking at the wrong screen. Know how to do things and know why things were done. Jesus Christ, sorry. Sorry for cursing. So these are some slides on what development is. Sort of covered all this stuff in my talk just now. And there's all sorts of ways to organize this stuff, right? There's comments, pull requests, people send emails around, people talk on the phone, people send IMs, but it's kind of like this giant disorganized mess of a desk. And so there have to be some better ways to be very public about your decision-making process. And here's just a couple examples of some things we find useful at GitHub. So before I started working at GitHub, is everyone familiar with the pull request? Does anyone not know what a pull request is? Okay, good. So before I started working at GitHub, I used GitHub in a very specific way. And then the way that I think a lot of people use GitHub, I would fork a project or start a branch, do a bunch of work, get to where I thought I was like 99% done, and then open up a pull request and say, hey, maintainer or coworker, this is done or close to done. Take a look at it and merge it if it's okay. But one thing, there's a very simple change to that flow that I think makes for a lot better and more public decision-making process and record around what you're doing, and that's the work in progress pull request. So a lot of times at GitHub, this is an example of work in progress pull request. Mike, who's giving a workshop later, opened up on our 3D printing software. So before the code was even really designed, like with just one or two sort of failing tests or sort of skeleton classes checked in, he opened a pull request saying, hey, everyone, I want this merged into master, but it's in progress, so don't actually merge it. And because of the way that code is attached in line and interleaved with comments on a pull request, you get to see the entire decision-making process in public in a way that's sort of emailed out and notified to everybody. And it's such a simple thing, but opening a pull request when something is still in progress and discussing it is a great way to surface both the decisions you made about the code and why you're making features. It lets people kind of jump in. Because with the old model of just doing all your work and sending a pull request, you might have wasted 2 weeks doing the wrong thing. and this sort of prevents that. So one of the other things that we do at GitHub that is along the lines of developing in public is something called chat ops. Are any of you guys familiar with any of the things we talked about with chat ops before? Okay, it doesn't look like it. One of our ops guys, Jesse Newland, gave a really good talk on, actually this is from Vicent's, a talk that another guy that works with us gave. But one of our ops guys, Jesse Newland, gave a talk about chat ops and how we use the Puppet deployment framework. And I really encourage you to go check it down. I'll add a link to my slides when I upload them. But what chat ops is something that's near and dear to the heart of everybody at GitHub. We have this robot, Hubot, that sits in our chat room. And I was going to do a live demo of deploying some stuff, deploying the site, things like that, but I'm unable to get on the network. I am clearly incompatible with technology today. But anyway, we have a chatbot that sits in our chat room and responds to commands. It does a variety of things. If you've been, around technology for a while, you probably remember this from back in the IRC days. It does jokey things like print, send pictures of corgis to the room or tell you who's in the office. But it also does things up to and including deploying GitHub.com to production. So it basically glues together a number of simple tools we've written that all have APIs that speak JSON. And the end result is you can pop into, let's see if I ended up getting back on the network. I guess I'm probably not. Oh, did I close that? Yeah, it's probably down here. Doesn't matter. I couldn't get on the network earlier, so sweet. We've got demo, and there's my dark low contrast screen. Anyway, so I can log into here and say, hey, what is the CI status of hi DevCon. What is the CI status of GitHub? Of GitHub, the site that you all use. So I just log into chat, do that, and in a second, depending on how much the network likes me, I should get back the last build result. So the last build was this commit and the master branch, and it was successful. I could say I've made some changes to the bot itself. I could deploy it to production from chat. So deploy Hubot. And this is a quick one. That's why I picked it. So it should come right back with, your production deployment of Hubot was a success, with a link. Come on. I'm deploying. My production deployment is done. I can, let's see. All right. Graph me. This will be a little easier with two hands. Graph me last 10 minutes of app performance cache queries. All right, give me the graph. I mean, this is the sort of thing you see a lot, obviously, in the ops room when people are trying to diagnose what's going on with the site. Come on, graph me. Sometimes it takes a second because it has to, there we go. Yeah, okay, so there's cache queries on production. And so I'm like, that doesn't get me the answers I need. Let's see how all of our web serving processes are doing. Prox Unicorn, let's see the status of all the processes on production that match Unicorn. It's like a pgrep sort of thing. I think I'll probably, I was going to go through the whole process of trying to diagnose a thing and seeing who's on call, but since this is taking a little time for these to come back, I'll probably cut it off after this. But the point of this demo is that everything that ops does can be done in chat and is done in chat. And I mean, yeah, that's cute, you might think. I mean, that's a fun demo. But what's the point, right? What's the big deal? How is this different? Because if the point is getting stuff deployed, come on. If the point is getting stuff deployed, who cares if you do it in chat? It's a cute demo. You wrote some JSON APIs and you strung them together with chatbot. So what's the big deal, right? As Jesse said in his talk, why is this stupid chatbot so important to ops? basically, when you bring the actual work of doing ops into the middle of the conversation about doing ops, everyone is pair programming all of the time, and everyone is working together. And all right. And everyone is pair programming all the time, and everyone knows how everything is done, right? I don't have to ask, how do I deploy Hubot? Because I saw someone deploy the site, so I know I can just type deploy, a repo name, and get the results, right? So you get some of the benefits of like having two people at the same terminal in person, but times everyone on your team, as long as they occasionally look at the relevant chat room. So it's like you're always pairing. And you may think this is not relevant to you because you may have a small team, or you don't work on long-lived projects, or you don't have sort of a mature environment in which to do this work. And that's fine. I mean, not everybody is big enough to spend full-time work on things like fancy chatbots that can deploy software, or all sorts of internal tools that record what you're doing. But what can you do short of using or building these tools to build a habit of developing in public? One of the things is a self-reporting culture. Now, this seems a little vague, but culture is something that I think is very important. I talk about a lot. I mean, I would go so far as to say that hiring someone because they fit your company culture is more important than hiring them because they have technical skills. It's a whole nother talk that we could go into at length. Not now. I only have a few minutes left. But even if you don't have the resources to like run everything through Hubot or build APIs to like publicly log everything or share screen sessions and shell as you deploy everything, you can still get the benefits of this sort of public work and public record keeping. It's just a little bit more effort. You just need to let the people you're working with know that it's important to you that they keep everyone informed of their decision-making process. In other words, you say, I'm hiring you as a software developer. Software development is not code. It's only half code. And if you don't do the other half, and if you don't do it in a public way, you're not doing your job. And I think that is really important. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking about all of this sort of developing in public stuff if I didn't think it was important. So, enforcing it at the culture level, I think, is worth doing. You can embrace good tools. All tools are opinionated. If you use Jira, you can't help but organize yourself in terms of categories, sort of hierarchical organization, numeric priorities, things like that. So you need to find and embrace good tools that make it easy for you to make public every step of your decision-making process. Be predictable. I'm just going to give up on the slides at this point. Be predictable. If you have a small team and you're working on a lot of things, you can get some of the benefits of developing in public by doing things the same way with every new project. And this sounds like a really dumb, obvious thing, but if you think about it, I know every time I open up a new internal tool that it's probably going to be a Sinatra app or a Rails 3 app, use a certain gem for authentication. I know it's going to use certain GitHub styles and behaviors. And I'm familiar with the decision-making process that went into that. So that helps me understand everyone's motivations. And prefer communication in the sense of if you're wondering, should I or should I not send these emails or write these comments explaining why I'm doing things, always, always, always err on the side of too much communication. But as an important caveat here, don't expect it to be blocking communication. Don't interrupt people. I tend to put a half an hour aside in the morning and the afternoon to reply to my emails and respond to my chat pings. Because, then it's just, if I don't, then it's just as bad as you tapping me on the shoulder every 5 minutes. So anyway, why do this at all? Why is this important? If in the end the code's written, the server's set up, the client's happy, why even bother with like this tedious self-documentation? There's a couple reasons that I think are important. One, without this kind of work, you cannot, in my opinion, have truly productive remote workers. And I think to give up on the idea of remote workers and hiring people that aren't maybe in the same town or on the same block as you is to ignore a huge resource of people that can help you out and work with you. And the fact is most open source work is done remotely. And without this sort of public decision-making process, you end up people going off on their own for 2 weeks at a time and wasting time and getting stuff that'll never get merged. Also, fast. I know I'm nearly done, right? All right, I'm rushing through my last couple. You can onboard. It's the best way to onboard new people into your team. When you hire someone new, they don't have to ask you how to do things because they see it being done in public at all times. Like no one asks me, the status of my apps or how to deploy them or like where things are stored, because they can see every day how to get that for any app and any product and anything I've worked on without having to have specific domain knowledge or even check out my code. One other benefit of focusing on developing in public is that if everybody knows how you make your decisions and you're very transparent about that, they will know that you don't have a hidden agenda, and they won't interact with you in a way that is an attempt to like play mind games or manipulate you, and you can have real open communication about what you're working on. And also, no one gets lost in the sense that if you disappear for 2 weeks and work on something and come back and it's wrong, if you had talked through the first steps of that, you would never have gone off the track in the first place. So that I'm just going to wrap up and say I think that this is very important, treating all of the artifacts of software development that aren't code in the same way that we treat code, with a public history, and servicing our decision-making process and our communication as much as possible is essential to being productive in a sort of modern work environment. I started a repository for discussion around this. If you think it's important, visit this URL and comment on the issues, send me emails, ask me questions. I'm the Daniel on GitHub and Twitter. And I'll put up a link to Jesse's ChatOps talk if you're interested in that as well. And I'm way out of time. Thank you.